Welcome to the course, Shooting for Digital. I'm really excited about this session because we have with us today Neha Sharma, who, if you haven't seen her work, I beg you to have a look at her work because it is wonderful stuff. We'll be looking at quite a bit of it today in the course. Neha is joining us from Delhi, which, as you've probably seen in the news, is going through a really difficult time at the moment. So it's amazing of Neha to join us. I've been trying to give her the opportunity to not do this for the last couple of days, but she's been determined to do it. So thank you so much, Neha. Neha, tell us about yourself. Tell us who you are, where you are, what you do, how you started. What's your story?
So I'm the lead shoot editor of all Indian languages for the BBC. I am based here in Delhi, and I started with the BBC News as an intern 12 years back, 12 and a half years back. And soon I got a job as the studio manager, one of the studio managers here with the radio team. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I got a bit bored of that job. So I was not sure what I was going to do. One random day, I just picked up a camera of a friend, DSLR, and I clicked a couple of pictures. And he sort of just looked at it and he said, "Wow, you can actually take pictures." So that's when I realized that is that something I want to do. So I just started like exploring more about it, and I started like self-teaching myself how to just basic, simple, like I didn't understand at that point anything about visual medium. I didn't understand what a sequence is, how to frame things, nothing, composition. But it all started very intuitively. But I think I sort of prepared myself enough in advance. When a job came up in news gathering back in 2012, I applied for that and I got that job even without having enough experience beforehand. So from there started my journey. I was the first female camera person ever hired in the BBC in India. So that's nothing to flaunt, but just saying that there's such less women in this profession in India. And yeah, I think from there it's never been it's just been incredible as a journey. And I have covered a lot of stories, all kinds of news and feature stories from across South Asia and sometimes beyond as well. And it continues.
It's really wonderful to have you here. I'm just going to lay out a few rules for today. If you could please keep your video off and mute your sound for the time being. That doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you at all. We absolutely want to hear from you. If you do have questions, if you could pop them into the chat, what I will do is I'll be screening those questions throughout the session. I will ask them at the relevant times. Please do ask your questions, though we want to make this as kind of interactive as possible. So put your questions into the chat. I'll be screening that all the way through and making sure we ask them at the relevant times. And just a reminder that I am recording this session. It will be put onto YouTube shortly afterwards, hopefully sometime this afternoon. So if you want to watch anything back, please do. Lovely. Coming up, this is what's coming up today. We are going to be talking about what is filming for digital. Why is it different to filming for TV, for instance? We're going to be talking about how Neha prepares and how she plans. We're going to be looking at how you frame interviews. We're going to be looking at the kind of essential shots that all video journalists should be thinking about getting. Then we're going to be looking at Neha's magic moves and the magic shots that she gets. Then we're going to be talking about the importance of recording good quality sound and using it properly. And at the end, we'll kind of open it up again for a question and answer session. So that's what's coming up today. Please, as I said, drop your questions into the chat. Excellent. So Neha, the very first question, and I guess this is the toughest question of all, what is different about filming for digital? Why is it different to filming for TV, for instance?
It is a very difficult question, Dan, because all these years I'm still trying to learn what is the perfect digital way of doing a story. Because when I started by doing packages with correspondence, and then things kept changing over years, and we were told that digital is the way to go. And I was like, what does that even mean? Does that even mean does that only mean going on a digital platform? But then I think over the years I've understood one thing about digital. Digital is all about experimentation. It gives you all the creative freedom. So anything that you want to experiment. So for me, digital is actually experimentation. human faces, human stories, in the closest possible way, just reaching out to people, in their intimate most spaces, and just getting their trust, so that they allow you to actually ask those questions, they allow you to actually film them so closely and bring those intricate details about their lives, their what they've seen, what they've been through. All that only happens when you are in a very intimate space, and that only happens when they have your trust, rather you have their trust. And actually it's both ways. So for me, digital is all about experimentation, as I said. And how I do that, I basically watch a lot of content, I read, i I sometimes just sit down before a story, I think of the treatment. I don't want, TV sort of is very easy in a way, because you just go and the story, the elements, and then all you need to do is basically, okay, this sequence there, that interview there, this sequence there, that interview there, and a piece to camera, and your story is ready. But digital is so free flowing. How do you make each digital look different than the other? So to explore more about the treatment, I just watch everyone's content a lot. I just sometimes in my free time, I just fiddle with my camera, I try to, and I'm not technically very very savvy, so let me put that very clear here. But at the same time, I am not afraid of experimenting. I just watch people's content, I just bring all those ideas together, and something from there just comes up. And people, when they look at some of my stories, and they say, wow, that's really a genius idea. Well, that's all cheated from all sides, because I've actually picked different ideas of different people, I've put it all together, and that becomes my idea. So it's all about taking that creative leverage, and just creating your own formulas, creating your own boundaries, and then pushing it. And that's what digital is. Whereas TV can sort of limit you sometimes, digital is very very free flowing, it's more spontaneous.
I'm really, really, really pleased that you've said that, you'd encourage people to watch more content, because I think that's really true. I think you learn so much by looking at other people's work, trying to ask questions like, how did they do that? Why did they do that? What's the audience making of that? I think that's really, really, really important. To get that concept, I'm going to show one of your films, Neha. First of all, just tell us what this film was about. How did the idea come about?
All right, so this is a film I did on these farmers who have been protesting against a farm law which was introduced last year by the government. And they feel very threatened with the law. They feel that their basic the basic price of their crop will also not be given to them if this law comes into the picture. So they've been protesting on the outskirts of Delhi here. There are like three main prominent borders that they were sitting on and protesting on the outskirts of Delhi, and it had been going on for months. So I was not able to actually go and do the story because I was busy with something else, some other project. So I was itching to go, but but it was too late, and the entire media had done this story to death. Every day they were like, it was almost like a media festival going on for months there. Like every channel had like plenty of stories coming out of that one three protest sites every day. So when I and my colleague Rupa, we both decided to actually go and do the story, because it was so big, it was happening right in the neighborhood, and we were not able to go. So we decided to go for it, but then the challenge was how to make it look different than what has already been done. And frankly, every clip that we got, every interview that we got, it had all been done by people. All the pictures that we got, it had all been like taken by different people. So what value extra do you bring to this? So that's when we got thinking about the concept in itself. So the concept here was not going and talking about the politics of it. The concept was to just go and spend time with them on the night of 31st December, which is sort of it was an idea basically. It's the night of transition where they leave behind the year, and they are looking forward to another year, and what change they expect the new year to bring. What is it that is making them sit there in this chilling cold on this on the highway of India, and they've just been sitting and protesting. So what keeps them going? That was the basic idea. We didn't want, and that's all we tried to capture in this. And I actually just went with one idea in my head in terms of filming, that I wanted very good sound. And I was hoping in my head that, I get someone there on the protest side who could actually sing a folk song. Because, all these protest sites, India is very vibrant, and, you see people slogan shouting, or sometimes even singing or playing a small instrument. So I was hoping to get something of that sort, just in terms of good sound. But we really got lucky. We got this guy who was this brilliant, amazing singer, and, that became the full underscore of my story. So this is the story.
Let's have a watch of the first minute or so.
The Singhu border has become the epicenter of the protests. Old and young, men and women who continue to brave the bitter cold and rain and refuse to back down. I am Rupa Jha, and I've come to spend a night at the Singhu border. I'm not here to debate the laws which have angered the farmers. I'm here to simply understand what keeps them going. Joginder Singh is a former soldier in the Indian Army. He says he is unfazed because he has fought battles in much harsher terrains.
हम तो बर्फ़ में 27 फुट की बर्फ़ में हिल साइड में भी रहे हैं, तो हमारे को तो ये ठंड ठुंड का कोई परवाह नहीं है, तो इसलिए
Absolutely. I'm going to keep the pictures playing, but we'll talk over it, Neha. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful opening to a film. You talked about trying to create kind of intimacy with your pictures and with your sound. Talk us through why you filmed it this way and how that creates intimacy.
So you can you just go a second back, just a second back. So this is the correspondent, Rupa Jha. So even the way I've used her in the entire story, it's a long video actually, and, the Hindi version of it was actually 11-minute long. The English one was 6-minute long. So, it's long enough for, but at the same time, we didn't want her to be visible throughout the piece. But, how I've used her is more like a fly on the wall, where she's just quietly just hearing people out, and we didn't want any piece to camera there. We just wanted to hear people, just watch what they are going through, just from a distance, but in a very, in still a very intimate space, like without disturbing them. None of these shots were told to them, okay, keep cooking, for example. Here I didn't tell anyone, okay, continue doing this. So all of this was happening very, very organically, without interrupting them anywhere. Like all these shots, like, just let them be in their, you know safe zone. So basically, this is the reporter again. So the way even she's asking the question to the woman, it's basically, we didn't ask her to come out or stand, or we try to keep it as natural as possible. And I think that is what you can see in the film. And, that's why it looks different than other films having correspondent in it, because, the correspondent also here sort of blends very, very organically in the shots, and you can't really tell that, it's driven by a correspondent. And we also, like, we spent the whole night there. So, the idea was to basically just sit, have that whole time lapse around the night, so that, you could get different actions, different activities at different point of time, to just get that sense of variety. So, even that, for that one single shot where they are bathing at 3 a.m. in the morning, in that bitter cold. Yeah, this shot, for example, we just stayed awake for this one shot, because I knew that I wanted this shot, because this is quite crazy. It's all fog. They are bathing out in the open, and the temperature that day was 1 degree when we were there. So, it just tells you, I mean, if you spend time, if you invest in a story, it comes out. And, sometimes you may just think that, oh, actually I don't have to be so literal, I don't have to show everything. But, sometimes just spending that time helps. And yeah, like shots like these.
We're going to look at lots of different shots from this piece throughout this session. I love as well, you talked about, you know, how you wanted to spend the whole night there, but build that into the story. You know, if people always ask about storytelling in video, and the great way to do that is to spend a day with somebody and just lay it out kind of chronologically, or in this case, spend the night filming people. And you start off with it dark and you finish with the sun coming up in the morning. It's a really, really nice way to tell a story. Let's move on a little bit. We're going to dissect that film lots and lots and lots this morning. Let's jump back a tiny bit. Talk us through your preparation, your planning. Why is it so important for you when you're making a digital piece, Neha?
Personally, it is very important for me because I think I'm quite forgetful. So there is no way I'm going to do a story without making my notes. So my notepad is always next to me. I have to prepare, even if I don't have the time. You know, just getting your thoughts together, just gathering it and just penning it down, or at least making like quick notes on your iPhone on the way to the site where you're going to do the film. I think it's just very critical. You know, preparation for me begins with actually of course making sure that you have everything in the kit. Your kit is probably working, so you know. And since we are using very smart cameras these days, but also it has too many functions and they are a bit fiddly. So what I do normally is that every time I go out on a shoot, if I have the time, I will actually take out my camera. I will actually go through all the settings. I just refresh everything in my head. I don't want to like be struggling with buttons and settings out there in the field, which still happens. So you know, I wonder if I don't prep and go, and if I don't do that at home or in office before going, how I'll basically be just juggling on the infield. And apart from that, yeah, as you can see it here, arriving early means not on time, but really early. So you know, at least an hour in advance is something we must do, because you know, you want to be there, you want to see the location, even though you've imagined everything. Like that's what I do. Once I know what the story is, once I sort of have fixed all the elements of the story, then I actually sit with my pen and paper and I just start imagining uh, you know, how the location is going to look like. If people have done stories on that, so I go and I did do a bit of research. I watch how the place looks, what are the options I can get there once I'm there. So you know, it's just and even if that story has never been done, you know, you can still visualize what all you're going to get once you're there. So it just sort of helps you in planning better. So I think of few things that I definitely want to have, and obviously I keep it flexible, that once I'm there, I will see maybe something better comes up than what I imagined, and you know, I'll definitely get that. But you know, no harm in actually making a note of the fact that you know, these are the things that I definitely need in my kitty. Arriving early for sure, because you know, and it's also very very critical to actually spend time with people you're going to film. Sometimes you know, just to, you know, there could be some very difficult stories you're going to film. So you know, for that, just building a rapport sometimes is very important, and for that you need to have a little bit of time in hand. So just arriving early for even simple things like talking to people, meeting them, just looking around the house. If you're filming in a house, okay, this room is better, that room is better. I'm sure we all do that, but you know, is just reminding ourselves again and again that you know, this is a must have and we have to do it. And if possible, do a proper recce. Like you know, for example, there have been stories where if the recce didn't happen, the story wouldn't have happened, because you know, it's the terrain has been so difficult in certain cases. Like for example, this story that I went to do, if you could play this, Dan.
Fine. So what was this story about, Neha?
This was about honey hunting that happens in Nepal. It happens in a very remote area, and the honeycombs are actually hung on a very steep cliff. This cliff that you can see right now, and there is so you know what the villagers actually do is they climb down from a ladder. It's pretty steep actually. It's just like a wall. So you know, it's very difficult to actually film that from, you know, we needed to be at a spot from where we could actually film the honeycomb. So from where you can see the honeycomb is quite below where the honeycomb is. If you could just go back a bit.
Sorry, yeah.
Just where the honeycomb is hanging. Yeah, this shot. Yeah, this shot. So basically you could see this activity happening, but from the bottom, and from the bottom you can't get this shot really. So we had to find a spot which was sort of parallel to where this activity was going on, but at the safer distance, so that we were not attacked by bees, which also happened eventually. We were attacked by the bees, but at the same time, we were still a bit far from there. But that just exploring that one spot from where we could actually film this. So we went all the way from India to Nepal to do this story, but it was very tricky to find that one platform where you could mount your tripod and film. So it took us, like, we kept 2 days for filming, but our entire one day just went in wrecking this one spot. So sometimes wrecking is that critical. Your story won't take place if you don't do the recce properly.
I always say to people, even if you've got, a lot of people don't have a whole day to do a recce, but even if you just got 5 minutes to do a recce, which you'll get if you turn up early, use that 5 minutes to do a recce. Have a quick walk around, think about where the light sources are, think about the sounds. Is there like a really noisy extractor fan in the room? All those things you can only really gauge by doing a quick recce. So if you get the chance to do a recce, do a recce. I'll send links to all of these films afterwards to have a look. I mean, there's so many amazing shots in all of Neha's work. But yeah, let's show some of these are notes that you're making before you're going filming. Talk us through the kind of things you're planning here, Neha.
Oh yeah, it's a bit embarrassing. People might just think like, what, can she not remember anything? But this is exactly how I do it. Like, I literally have to write that I have to charge my laptop, I have to charge my gimbal batteries, I have to charge all the batteries of the camera. I make sure that I pick the tripod base plate, basically just charging GoPro, drone. I just, in fact, even I check all the mics, even though it's always kept in one bag, but I ensure that everything is in place. XLR cables, like just small things. Everything has to be there, because you don't want to be in a situation where there one thing is missing and you're like, oh my god, now how am I going to like goof up with my audio? So just going through all your kit, and then also depends. Each story demands different kind of kit. So I also write it down, because I want to be sure I have an imagination of the story, so I know that okay, I need a gimbal here, I don't need a gimbal here, so I'm not taking the gimbal. So that is why I write down everything, because each time something or the other changes in the kit, depending on the requirement of the story. Then the second note that you can see on the screen is links. So this is basically my basic structure that I've created in my mind, that the top would be like talking about what this whole story is, which is about Article 370. Then there'll be a small title slate that will come. Then I will introduce, so I've written that on the way in the car, I'm going to talk and introduce myself and why I'm there. So that bit, I just wrote it down so that I remember to do that bit. Then how am I going to cover the element of politics? So we are meeting, blah blah blah. So these are just basic things that I've written down, uh, just in terms of structure. Then what else? Oh yeah, these days also PPE kit, gloves, face shield, sanitizer. All of this is the new, to-do list that's been added to our work. So I even note down all of this, because you don't want to just step out in this dangerous atmosphere without these things. So yeah, I think just making sure that you have everything on paper, and as you can see, I tick off everything that is there. So I am this I think it's always good to be very organized. It always helps in your filming. You're always sorted, where you've kept what in your bag. You don't waste time in just digging through your bag, and just there I've seen some people whose kits are quite messed up, and it takes them like 5 minutes to dig out a simple cable. So just small things, like just being organized, just knowing exactly, like blindly you put your hand into your bag and this thing is going to come out. So that's the kind of organization we all need to have in mind.
If anyone's got any questions about planning, prepping, type them in the chat now. While you're doing that, I'm going to ask Neha one more question, which is, how much do you actually think about your film when you're doing your planning? Are you thinking about the shots that you need? Are you thinking about sounds you need to record? How how much do you know what your film is going to look like before you go filming?
I mean, I am almost certain how my film is going to look like before I go. I mean, there are very few times when I've actually landed up not knowing how it's going to be. Those are only in breaking news situations where you've never been to a story like that before. You've never seen something like that before. That's the only case where even in that I start imagining. So, oh, okay, so I'm going to cover a cyclone. So, what am I going to expect? So, I'll just dig out some old footage and just see what I can see, and then even the safety precautions that you need to take, like for example, you're covering an earthquake or a disaster, and you just got to be mindful of few things at the same time, have the presence of mind to keep rolling on, not get nervous. So if you're prepared, I think you are more intuitive and more receptive of what's happening around. You don't get a shock when you suddenly see something. So I think those are like breaking news situation kind of planning I do. But apart from that, I think I pretty much write everything. I know my storyboard, I know who I'm going to speak, I know the questions I'm going to ask, I know the answers I want from people. So I'll go round and round and round, and sometimes filming of the story takes less time and interviewing people takes more time, because I think at the end of it, it's their story, it's their it's the content that is going to create your story. So it is very important to spend that kind of time, and also doing like small research. Like for example, you're going to film someone like an athlete, for example. So what was the low time of her career, and how did she overcome that? Only if you can ask that question to because you want to sometimes give them a trigger so that they speak something emotional. But for that, you need to be very prepped about your own research. So I think just reading a bit more about the subject you're going to interview also helps. So having all those basic questions in mind, just basic shots, the kind of sequences, and apart from that, everything else extra that you get there is definitely a bonus. And one thing which is very very critical for me is getting good sound. So because I always feel that 60% of your story is actually sound, only 40% is visuals. So we are often mistaken about this, and I know most of us, we do pay attention to audio, but sometimes we get flustered when things are happening too quickly, and we just forget sometimes to mic up, or to even if you just forgot, like just be mindful. And even my to-do list also always has good audio. I always write good audio. So even when I'm like done with the shoot, and at the end I just look at everything and I'm like, oh my god, I didn't take that sound, I need more good sounds. Just it may not be always the same sound under the same shot. For example, I may have a walking shot of people, but the sound under that is not that great. So I would just, like, after I'm done with the shot, I just go walk with the people. So basically your audio has to be where the good sound is. You can't be far off, you will never get the right sound. So it's always like going close to the action point, where you're never going to get the shot and the sound in the same go sometimes. So what you need to do is take the shot and then take the sound separately, because I just shove my mic as close as this sometimes to where the sound is. So it's just remembering those things. So yeah, this is what I do.
Right, we've got a few questions coming in. Olga asks, number 6 in the links, which is this middle page here. She says, internet, what does this mean? I'm guessing that's just something you've got to film, right?
Yeah, so basically it's the story I was doing. Basically it is from the state, now no more a state, it's a union territory. I'm sure you guys know about Kashmir. So there was no internet for one whole year in Kashmir, uh, because of various security reasons. That's what the government claims. But as a result, there were obviously no schools happening, because the schools were not happening across the country last whole year because of the pandemic. And all the people were having online classes. But in Kashmir, even online classes could not happen, because they only released 2G after a point, and 2G connection is no good. So basically this whole story was about Kashmir, and internet was just one of the elements. So I just wrote internet, and how I illustrate the problems that the ban of internet is posing is that school kids are not going to school, and then they are not getting internet to even have online classes sitting at home. So it's that bad.
Really good question from PW. What about risk assessments? When do you do this and how? Do these involve a recce in advance?
Uh, Not always, as we mentioned before, because we don't always have the luxury of doing the recce. But when I am doing risk assessment, which happens a lot of times, like for example, even in this story, so every time we go to Kashmir now, we have to do risk assessment. So we know the basic dangers. So we would write all of that. But then it's also sort of good to speak to someone local, just find out about the at present scenario, at present what can flare up when, what just understanding a bit of more on ground situation. So even having those phone calls with the local stringer before you go for work, that helps, and that you can obviously write down in the risk assessment if you yourself have not been there for recce, because I think practically recce wouldn't be possible in each story.
A couple more questions which aren't exactly about this section. So I will ask the two questions that have been sent in from Bandog01 and Kamal. I will answer those for you shortly. I do want to move on from planning because we've kind of done the planning and you've been brilliant with it, Neha. Let's look at your interview shots. I'm going to pick out a few interview shots from the amazing film with the farmers that you just shown. Bandog, this might answer one of your questions. Bandog was asking about how you make the interviewees feel comfortable. Let's talk about these. I've picked out 3 different interview shots here to talk about. You pick one, Neha, and tell us which one you want to describe to us.
As you can see, I have not tried to bring either of the 3 people out of their comfort zone. That's my first rule. I mean, just try to keep them in their most natural surroundings. So this old man on the top of the screen, this old man was basically sitting in a trolley on the protest site, and I saw him from distance. Half his face was actually covered in shadow, and just one eye and one portion of his face was actually well lit. And that is what struck my eye, and I was like, oh my god, I want that shot. So I ran to get that shot. I managed to get the shot which I've used in the story, like much earlier at the top actually, where half his face is absolutely pitch dark and half is like in vision, and you can see that little twinkle in his eyes. That's all I wanted when I was approaching him, but he just moved from there. So he sort of came in the light till I could actually go up to him. So I just started, building up a conversation. So I just start, hello, uncle, this, that. Like, this is the way we approach in India. Like, we call them uncle, aunties, or didis, which is like elder sister. So, just make them comfortable. Just become part of them. You should not stand out from the crowd. They should not feel like, oh, some very fancy journalist is here interviewing us. I think the moment they sense that, sometimes they get a bit intimidated, but if you just talk them out, you just make them comfortable, that's when they become very natural. Because the people's natural instinct is to become very uptight in front of the camera, but you don't want that, and especially not for a digital story. So that's what I did. I told that old man to just stay where he was. I was like, no, just be there. You look amazing. I just want to understand what is going on here. What do you have to say about this whole thing? And he said some very, very incredible things. So he said, what is just what you can see here, this is everybody's struggle, everybody should benefit. So I think that's the larger good that this whole community in general does. Basically, this is a Sikh community. Largely Sikh communities are protesting here. Of course, farmers from across India are part of these protests, but most of these guys, like you can see in the frame, they are from Sikh community, and they are very giving in general. So that's also something that they're fighting for sitting here, and that was also a message that we wanted out, and he spoke that. But he only spoke that because I think he was not worried that I'm going to manipulate his what he says. So he just spoke to me. I just made him comfortable. Basically, in the second frame you can see this woman and the reporter in the same frame. I deliberately kept it too short instead of just going close into her face or just having the interviewee in the frame. this just makes it look very natural. I didn't ask her to. She was actually stepping down from there again. She was like, okay, I'll just come out. And I was like, no, 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 just stay here. And because she was just resting there, she was lying like this. And when I approached her, I was like, we want to speak to you. Are you okay? She was like, yeah, yeah. And then she got up and she was coming out of her trolley, but we said, no, just sit here. So, just remembering, obviously in their own space they are going to be most comfortable. So those are the things you need to keep in mind, and just using these small little things hanging in the trolley, just a little bit of this red flag, or even this, the way the reporter is standing, she doesn't have to always be on the same level, a very formal setup. This is absolutely like, she was just bending and listening her. And that's what you want, because this is where, when people connect with you, that they feel that the reporter is actually just hearing you out. They empathize with you, and that's what this frame, I think, sort of tells you. Even in the shot below, this person was just sleeping here, so of course we couldn't have interviewed him sleeping down, but so the reporter just went and sat there. So basically it's just, it also gives a variety of framing, and they all are in the natural setting, and that's when they're most comfortable. They'll open up to you easily.
I think they're three really, really nice intimate shots. We've used that word intimacy a lot talking about digital. Just the reporter sitting down on the floor with the interviewee is such a nice thing to do, because it's, as you say, Neha, it's breaking down all the barriers. TV over the years has built up barriers. We're the reporter, you're the interviewee, and the two shan't cross. Here is the reporter becoming part of the story and sitting down on the same level, sitting on the floor and talking. It's a really, really, really nice way to create that intimacy. Let's show another couple of shots. This is from a different piece. This is a piece about a wrestler, a woman wrestler in India. I love the lighting on both of these shots, but talk us through why you framed these shots this way.
So actually, we were very limited in terms of filming here, because the colors were just this gray and the blues that you can see, and there was it was like an indoor stadium, and this is all that we had. I mean, uh, there was not much we could do, and we didn't have the time to set up, because she had literally given us, I think, 1.5 hours to film and to interview. So we really could not, like, set up lights and make it look any better. So there were those, those floodlights at the top, so I tried to put one frame there, and how else do you want her to sit basically on that mat, because that's the mat that also signifies that she's a wrestler. So it's something, it's her prop basically. So it's her space, so use her space. And then I kept it a little low angle so that I could get the top lights. And then I had a second cam actually, where I just put a close up frame there, so that whenever she expressed herself too well, and she was anyway very, very expressive. So sometimes I had this dilemma whether to just have her in the wide frame and to not use the close up at all, or to just use the close up and not have the wide. But I think just having the mix of both sort of worked. And actually the piece almost throughout looked gray and blue, but it didn't matter, because I think and also the change of lens. So I would just reiterate that each time just be mindful of the kind of lenses that you're using. If you're using digital cameras, so we have all these nice lenses, and you should always be mindful of what look you want your frame to have, and accordingly change the lens. So the wide one is on wide angle lens, and this is a tele lens, the close up. So sometimes I just use prime. So it just depends the kind of look you want, and for that you have to be mindful of keep changing the lenses.
There've been a few questions about A, what camera you're using, and B, what lenses you use. So if we just go back to this one, this was all filmed on which camera?
This was Sony A7 III.
And can you remember which lenses you took with you on that one? It'll be in
I
your notes somewhere, I'm sure.
I think apart from one shot in this film, I filmed everything on a prime. All the shots, everything. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And this one again, same camera?
Yeah, same camera. Yeah. The close-up is on a tele lens, and that one is on a 16-35 wide angle.
If you don't have two cameras, I mean, here's a little tip that I always used. I would do one interview on a wide shot, and then I'll just say to the interviewee afterwards, I'm just going to ask a few of those questions again, and I'm going to film it with a slightly different shot, and just explain to the interviewee that you're setting up a much kind of tighter shot. It also gives you the benefit of getting two sets of answers to play around with. So if somebody does a really good first half to one answer, but then they kind of drift away, then maybe there's the second half to the question or their answer is really good to use. So just literally just ask the interviewee or explain to them, I'm just going to film another shot now. I'm just going to ask a few of those questions again. I think it's a really useful thing to do.
I mean, in this case, we had two cameras. We were lucky, but usually I just have one camera, and there's nobody else with me. So I quickly try to at least sometimes set up a GoPro or iPhone, because iPhones, I mean, it just helps in intercutting basically, and just having a second option sometimes really makes your life easy in the edit table. And apart from that, I also do one more thing. I have started only filming in 4K, so it gives me the option of cropping it later in the edit. So yeah, I have stopped filming on HD. I just do everything on 4K actually.
Really good tip. How about these? Well, this is the same shot film shown two ways. So obviously I've shown it in 16:9. I've also showed it in vertical. What about this framing, Neha? Why would you choose this style of framing, and describe it to us?
So this was one of the initial digital stories that I did my career, and I was just experimenting at that point, and looking down the lens was something that I felt was, of course, we all know, we all do it a lot in our stories, but it just makes you feel like the person is talking to the audience directly. I mean, sometimes I personally feel that a little bit of profile makes the frame look nicer, but actually if you can get this look, doesn't matter how beautiful the frame is. Sometimes the way looking down the lens, you can connect with the audience. This woman is looking down the lens, that's not like talking to the camera, that's actually talking to the audience. And she had a very, very sad story. She's a refugee, and her story was really, really miserable, but just because she was looking into the camera and talking straight to the audience, you could literally connect. And it was very heartbreaking to watch it like that. And the moment you chop it and make it vertical, I think for vertical it works really beautifully. So sometimes 16:9 may not look very great, but since vertical is also the now go-to thing all the time, like all our stories, they want vertical versions to go out on social media. So I think it really works very well for social media, the vertical version.
Do you find ever that your interviewees are really uncomfortable looking straight down the lens though? And how do you, is there a way to get around that?
So yeah, so even I mean, normally what I do is I speak to people a bit in advance. I try to understand how comfortable they're going to be. Sometimes I've actually started with them looking down the lens, but after a question or two, I realized that they're really not comfortable, because even I get very intimidated looking into the camera and talking. So I'm constantly looking here and there. So what I tell them is that you don't always have to look into the camera. Just look around, just try to remember and talk, just feel what you're saying. So you have to keep like sort of directing them, and that helps, instead of just telling them look into the lens straight and talk. So that helps. And apart from that, if I feel that they're just not able to do that, then I switch, and I just tell them to look on the side. So yeah, it depends basically on the subject. But I think a little bit of rapport building and a little bit of just explaining to them what you're doing, why you're doing, they become more comfortable, and you can then make them do this.
When you see this shot on the right in vertical, you can see why it's such an effective tool. If you're watching that on your phone, that's going to look really, really, really great. So it is a really useful thing to do. But as Neha says, I think as well, if your interviewee is really struggling to do it, and lots of people really do struggle, just frame it really nice and tight, but get them keeping eye contact with you, because it's so much easier for them. And even so, if you've got a really nice tight shot, when you stick it into a vertical frame, it still looks really, really nice as well. Cool. There are lots of questions that are coming in. We've kind of talked about some of the things you've talked about. I will read out all the other bits at the end. We'll do a Q&A with Neha. I'm also slightly aware of time because Neha is such a brilliant talker that we are carrying on a bit. We're going to be carrying on a bit longer. Let's look at the things we call essential shots, Neha. When you're going out filming, what kind of things are you definitely going to try to get? We've pulled out a few together to talk about. What's this one?
So this is like a portrait shot. Again, the same impact that, looking down the barrel and, you straight away connect, like, this is his story. Even if the name just appears on the frame, you straight away connect instead of, them looking somewhere else. It is almost like they're looking at you while you're listening to their story. So, straight away a hit with connecting with people. So I think these shots are a must have when you filming digital, especially.
I think if your interviewee is really struggling to do the interview down the lens, this is a nice way to get around it. You just ask them afterwards, do you mind just you do your interview slightly off camera and then just ask them to do a video portrait or hero shot afterwards where they just look down the lens, and the bit where they say, my name is so and so and I'm a bee hunter, then you can use these video shots pasted over the top. I think it's a really, really nice it's a nice compromise and a really, really useful shot. You can use your video portraits, your hero shots as they're also known. You can use those at any time in the edit, I think. Any tips for getting a good one, Neha?
Nothing. I think, you just rightly put it, Dan, that, there is, I think, no effort that goes into these shots, and these shots are most powerful. So, these are the shots that you must have. I mean, this is a no-brainer actually now. I mean, most of the digital stories you find these shots, but at the same time, as much as these shots have been done to death, but it still has that impact, and you have to do it. And it takes you nothing. You just go up to them and just tell them, just look into the lens. It's not like they're talking into the lens, just plain looking into the lens, and that's not a big deal for anyone. And sometimes like people, you can't ask them to look into your lens. I just walk up to them, I just try to engage them in a conversation while I'm filming them. My camera is right here, so I automatically get this shot. So yeah, just so many ways to get this one shot.
This session isn't about me, but here is a tip that I used to use. I used to ask people I would say, just look at the camera, get them looking at the camera. Then I'd say, oh, go on, give us a smile. And that moment that they break into a smile, I would use that bit in the edit, because when somebody smiles, the audience smiles as well. Obviously, don't do that on a sad story, but if you're doing it on a kind of nice featurey piece, that moment where they break into a smile is a brilliant way to connect with the audience.
Actually,
excellent.
Sometimes even sad stories, if you have people smiling through a sad story, even that can have a very beautiful impact in the story, because it's just that melancholy, I think, that comes out of that situation, where they're smiling through their tough period also. So just find ways to put that shot to good use at the right place.
Good. This is the opening shot to one of your films as well. I will put links afterwards. I'll email you all afterwards with links to all of the kind of films that Neha's made. What's going on in this one, Neha?
So this is a little baby who was born this very day in a refugee camp in Bangladesh. He's one of the one of the Rohingyas who had to flee their country from Myanmar, and they came for shelter to Bangladesh, and this was in the refugee camp. So he was born this day, and we just wanted to do a story on a pregnant mother who had to flee her country overnight, because they were being attacked by mobs there in an ethnic cleansing. And what happens to so many kids who were getting born there in the refugee camp. So this little baby Anwar, I can never forget his face actually. Yeah, I just saw like a small bag in front of that woman who was walking very tired, and I thought something was not right. So I just went to check on her if she was okay or not. And then I realized, oh my God, she just delivered a baby. The baby was this small, very, very weak and very malnutritioned, of course. And the mother had walked like for some 7-8 days through her pregnancy, peak pregnancy. And, he was born, he was 6 hours old at this point when I filmed him. So, I think my focus was just the fact that this is the first time he's looking at the world, oblivious to the fact where he's born, what life holds for him. So it was just about this baby, and actually breaking all the norms of digital storytelling. I kept this one single shot rolling on for 30 seconds at the top of the story. So, this is what digital does to you. It gives you all the leverage to experiment and do whatever you want to do with it.
Why are close-ups so important for digital, Neha?
Because I think the beauty is in the details, in the expressions. I mean, just it just brings out the emotions, the real emotions, the tragedies. If you see it very close, I think it's again about intimacy. Intimacy is the key of storytelling for me, and it's always in the details. Because he
Also,
was
just
so tiny anyway. And I mean, of course I have got shots where you can see this tiny thing, uh, like in a very small cramped space, and I mean those are also very heartbreaking shots. But just looking at his eyes, I mean, it breaks your heart. And I think nobody can remain untouched when they look at these eyes and the story behind these eyes.
really true. I just want to show it as well. I mean, that's squeezed into a vertical, so it does still work as well. I mean, that's still a really powerful shot. The beauty of close-ups, of course, is so many people are watching on their phone now, right? So close-ups, they stand out better on your phone. You can see a whole lot more detail. But yeah, also that thing that Neha says about making the audience feel closer to the story, that's what close-ups do give you. Close-ups really, really, really important. Some more great questions coming through. I promise you, we will answer all your questions. Some of them are going to be answered. Some of them are going to be answered later on when we talk about other things. But those that we don't, we'll answer at the end for you. Your scene setters, Neha. Anyone who's watched Neha's film knows she loves a scene setting wide. What's the importance of the wide?
You want to know where you are. You want to this is basically bird's eye view of the story in itself. I mean, this is one of the stories from Nepal story, I think you picked. So yeah, it is basically just setting up where you are, where these people live, and it just also amplifies the day-to-day problems they might face. Because when you see the details of the story, oh, so this is the terrain, so the life must already be very difficult. So there are few things which are very quick to your understanding, like I don't have to then tell it in my story. So it just sets up the whole story straight away for people.
Really, really useful thing to get. Not even useful, vital, I would say. I talk about the 4 elements of a good story: a good character, interesting location, a problem that the character's having to overcome, and the resolution. If you haven't got a nice wide shot, it doesn't place the character in an interesting location. Your opening shots, Neha, also a thing of beauty. Always, we've seen the lovely close up of the baby. What's this story about?
This is about this caterpillar fungus, which can be apparently more expensive than even gold. So but it's again found at a very higher altitude now. Less, and the harvest is going down by the day because of environmental changes and various other factors. So it was just one of those environmental stories that we went to do. And if you could just play the opening.
यो हेर्छु गुम्बा हो, यसको मूल्य सुनको भन्दा नि धेरै छ यसको।
You planned that as the opening shot, right? That doesn't come around by luck. That comes around through planning.
So I didn't plan it before I went for the shoot, but I planned it. So I think, gathered this over, I think 2-3 days, because we had like several levels where we had to go and acclimatize and stuff. So we had time to think. So so these are the actually caterpillar fungus, and I was seeing this for the first time. That's when it struck me that, oh my God, this tiny thing, why is it so expensive? And there were like very picturesque shots in this entire film when we went higher up at 5,000 meter altitude on the Annapurna base camp too. But I mean, those are still something that we have seen. This was like the most shocking thing, that what is this thing that is more expensive than gold? So is just playing a bit with the lens, and also that one. I made this guy to say that one line, that, because it is a fact that this is more expensive than the gold. So I just made him to say that holding it, and it worked as a very good opening.
We all know the importance of the opening shots in digital video, right? We've got to grab the audience. Our videos are competing against, so many other things on social media. So getting the opening of the film right shouldn't be left to chance. I think you need to make sure that your opening is good, right? It's the most important thing to get right, almost, and it's the toughest thing, I think, to fix in the edit. If you haven't got a good opening sequence planned, or a really good strong clip at the start of your film, it's a really difficult thing to fix later on. Also, by contrast, the other thing that's really difficult to do is to finish a film. Talk us through how you well, let's watch this one and then talk us through why you decided to do this.
अनि सुनाई जुराइलाम दे केला बिहे त थोजुम बिहे त माजे मानी बिसे यरे किनियरे माने बिसे किनि हाइ बाइजुम ते जुराइरे केंगे जि माने मिलिटरी आयर होरा गाराकुरी गातकुरी गलाइ जम ति आनि ना मारी इन अल्लाह बिसि दिलक खाना या किंगुरी हायुम केंगुरी लयुम बाहियो मतिरी.
So what's happening?
So these are all refugees who fled, Rohingya refugees who fled Myanmar and came to Bangladesh. This is from a refugee camp. So we went to do a story on objects that they could bring along with them, and the objects that they could not, and which they miss. So, it was just as simple as an idea of like objects. So what did they bring along and what they could not? So, bringing along. So this little girl showed us like, this, makeup kit, because she loves makeup. So she's like, along with me, I got my makeup kit. So she showed us powder, foundation, lipstick, then she put it on. I asked her, can you put it on? And she overdid it. But those were such heartbreaking shots that, this is what childhood is, that, she actually, even in this catastrophic situation, she is like, sort of cut off from her tragedy. But at the same time, it is so tragic to see that, she is sitting under a makeshift tent and not knowing what has happened, and life is as simple as that at that stage, that you all you want to do is put makeup on because that's what you like and what you left behind. So obviously they talked through all of that, so for example, this little girl said that I had a nice yellow dress. It had like a little bit of pearl here, a little bit of pearl here, and that was my favorite dress, but I could not bring it because we were rushed so quickly. Like, we were told to, run away from there. And in that rush, I just forgot to pick my favorite yellow dress. Similarly, if you could go back a bit, this old man talked about this man says that I'm too old to bring anything with me. So all I brought was a little bit of money. He took it out from his pocket. He said that this is all I could bring because I knew that money might help me. And then he drew this this cow that he left behind, and he said that I'd nurtured this cow as my own kid for so many years, and I left him behind because I couldn't bring him with me, and I really miss him. And the woman says that I got a headache oil for my mother. I got this little bit of puffed rice with me in a packet. And then what she couldn't bring was, they actually dug all their gold that they had under an almirah in the house there, thinking that they will come back at some point and they will be able to use this gold in future. But now she knows that that gold is buried there under the almirah, which is never going to be she'll never get that. So we just made them to draw these things while they talk through that. So it's just putting their imagination to this visual treatment.
And it's also giving you a really, really nice ending sequence to the film, which is also really important. There's so much love for you on the chat at the moment, Neha. It's great to see. Thanks everyone for sending in. Few other essential shots. Let's have a quick look at this sequence.
ठाउँ चाहिँ अन्नपूर्ण 2 को बेस क्याम्प हो। यसको हाइट चाहिँ 4000 भन्दा माथि छ। अनि यहाँ किरा खोज्नलाई चाहिँ गोर्खाबाट, धादिङबाट, लमजुङबाट धेरै मान्छेहरू आउँछ।
The walking shot. Why is the walking shot so useful?
it takes you along on the journey. It just, you just become part of the journey. You, while, it just, that sense of movement that you get from these shots. I mean, I could have taken the same shots by just putting my camera on the tripod and filming from distance, zooming in, and I could have got all these shots. But this moving along with them just takes you along. So as a viewer, you just feel that, oh, this is what walking on these terrains is. So it just takes you to that location. And just like, yeah, I mean, there were just two like, if you go back a bit, yeah, so you can see one, no, next shot, yeah, this shot. So you can see one bridge under and one bridge over. So what I made him do was actually walk on the top bridge, and I just had a gimbal. Yes, I had a gimbal, and I just made him. So I was filming from down, so it almost looks like it could be a drone shot, but actually it's a gimbal shot. I'm walking on the, yeah, I'm walking on the lower bridge. He's walking on the bridge above. So just thinking, I think, and all these things in the foreground, it just makes it so much more dynamic. So just thinking how to make it look different than what you normally would do. So approach any shot uh, with a different perspective than just what the eye normally meets. So yeah, that's what my thought was behind this.
If you are film connoisseurs, the walking shot features in just about every single film ever made, because it's a great way of, well, it does three things. It establishes the character, it establishes the location, and it also, these shots just take you on the journey. When you're following somebody like this, you want to know where they're going, right? Because you're following them. So you're like, where are we going? Where's this guy taking us? It's a really, really great shot to get. And I urge you all to get them. Neha's done an absolutely beautiful job here. She's really turned it into a lovely sequence. The walking shot is just, it's a really useful thing to get. We can't let Neha go without asking about the incredible moves that she gets. A great way of bringing a story to life is through movement of the camera. It is an art form. Neha is brilliant at it. Can I just show a couple, Neha, and you can talk about them whilst I show them?
So on
Love
26th
this shot.
November,
How did you get this?
farmers from Punjab and Haryana states
Yeah, so
marched
it was
on the
again very, I think,
They clapped for
impromptu.
police firing
It was
tear
very
gas,
spontaneous. Like I
but
saw
it did not
these
stop the
guys were like
farmers
sitting and
from the
cooking,
capital.
and so I could have just gone for regular shots, just taking block shots, but instead I thought that if I could just walk there. So again, this walking along gives a lot of dynamism. This movement really also breaks the monotony of your, like, structured shots. So I just wanted, like, every now and then in my story, that's what I try to do. I try to either pan or make a bit of movement, and it gives a bit of break from your regular shots. So even there, like, actually it was a bit tricky and it was a bit wobbly even on a gimbal. If you could just go back a bit, sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
You keep
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
So on 26th November,
Yeah, just stop.
farmers from Punjab and Haryana states.
So there was this small rope that you could see. So actually to cross that was a bit not easy actually, but and I did this shot twice actually, and every time it wobbled a bit, and I was doing again this shot also on a prime lens. I didn't want a wide lens. The wide lens would have been much more I think stable, but I wanted this again, this like depth. I wanted to play with the depth, so I kept it on a prime lens. But even with the little bit of, like, it's not a perfect shot, I know, but even with those like wobbly movements, it just looks very natural, and I think it worked for this bit. And then
Got a lovely natural wipe as well here. Is that two shots, or that's two shots, isn't it? Edited together on the wipe.
yes, yes, because I wanted to go full circle, but I could not because the lens was not the right lens. I actually needed a wide here, but I was stubborn. I wanted to use a prime lens, which was restricting me, because when I was going round, I was actually not able to get these guys and the action properly. So I just intercut it with a second shot with a natural vibe.
For those that don't know what a natural wipe is, can you just describe what it is?
So natural vibe, I think this red thing, when it's crossing, you can see, yeah, this is basically a natural, like something which is like naturally moving around, and that can be used as a transition from one shot to another without making it look jump. So for example, I was walking here in this shot. If I was walking from a wide, if I cut into another wide, it would have, because the second shot also is a wide shot, but just because I've got that wide, that works as a very smooth transition, and you don't even feel like, you know, the shot changed. It looks like it's almost similar or the same shot. So it just gives you a good transition options. It lets you cheat.
Show you one more shot as well, which I love from this piece. My jaw dropped when I saw this. I just loved it so much.
At Singhu, you keep hearing
What a
that
fabulous
same
shot to
soft
establish
protest.
like what the location is like. It really makes you feel like you're there and you're part of it and you're exploring it as the viewer. So that's on the gimbal again.
Yeah, these were the only two gimbal shots, and this was the only single shot, I think, on wide angle. Yeah, that was the only time I used the wide angle shot in this entire film. And I used it because I wanted the entire action in one single frame. So I just thought that because I'd taken too many block shots, so I just, again, to break the monotony of similar shots, I did this. So changing the lens again is very important. So I changed the lens. It gives me like the width of the like, you know, I can use the whole space, and it comes in one frame, and the movement sort of gives you the feel of the whole place in one shot.
Another thing, a real trademark of yours, Neha, is you kind of film through things. You shoot through things. Look, if you look at these shots, I've just picked out a few shots. If you look at, there's always interesting foreground action. Why do you do that, Neha?
It just makes even a dull place look so much better. I mean,
For more than a
you know,
month now, thousands of
even in
farmers
this
have
interview,
been
for
protesting
example,
on
I
the
have a bit of
outskirts of
the
the Indian
shoulder.
capital.
And even when I'm like filming the interviewee, you know, I keep a bit of the you know, reporter in it. A lot of times I don't have like, not too many times you'll see clean frames for interviews in my stories, because uh, I just feel that, you know, it gives so much more depth. This is basically just playing with depth. And also, you know, normally and I will look at anything, like, you know, nobody looks through this fire to look at these faces. They will look just straight at the face. So, you know, that's our job actually, that, you know, we've got these amazing cameras, and we need to just make things look different than how normally people will look at it. So that's why I always, like, you know, just small things, like, you know, even if it's a very very dull background, a small room with no colors, no backgrounds, no lines, no shades, you know, even if you place like a small thing
Old
in foreground, it just fills up the space. It gives that, you know, sense of depth, and it just makes the frame look much nicer. So I always use.
It also gives the viewer that sense of kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? The viewer almost becomes an interloper. They're kind of spying on, or you're given like secret access, and the people don't know you're there, but you're watching it. It's that fly on the wall thing. If you film through things, you have interesting foreground action. It just gives that sense that you're looking in on the story as a viewer, which I think is really, really, really nice. Lots of questions about how you use the light in this piece, Neha. This is why we didn't answer the questions earlier, because I knew we were going to have a good talk about it. Now, talk us through how you use the light. I'm just going to play some of the shots again.
and sold.
So all of this is pure natural light use. I mean, there was never like, I don't even remember if I took light with me, or maybe I took it because I was a bit nervous actually, that it's all night filming, and you know, you can't imagine night sequences without. But you know, then I reached there, and once I saw the location, I was sure that I wanted to actually mostly film everything against the light. So even a little bit of hint of light as backlight, it created all this. And you know, if the light fell straight on them, it wouldn't have looked the same way. So I think it's all natural light all throughout. Just a little bit of, see, just a bit of shine, twinkle in their eyes, all this twilight kind of look, this light on their face is all from the fire that they're sitting next to. Nothing has been lit up. It's all pure natural light. And you know, I think natural light is quite magical. Even if you look at this frame, you know, the shadows that are falling on his face, it is such a beautiful way of modeling anyone's face. I mean, I'm not a great person in lighting up, because I've done very few stories lighting up properly, and we never mostly have the time to do that, and especially in stories like these, you don't have. I hate using a top light because it just falls flat on the face and it just flattens all the modeling of the face. So I just don't like that. I That is why I try to maximize the use of natural light, and doesn't matter. I think I don't know if you can go back, but one of the shots where you can see Rupa interviewing. I don't know if it's here.
I am not sure I've got that in this one, but
No problem. So we saw it quite a few times actually, where the reporter is speaking to this person. So the light. So for example, this side of my face is visible, and the reporter's right side of the face is visible, and the light was literally on the opposite side, and my camera was here. So basically, the light was coming from here, and I was filming from here. This whole portion was literally dark. There was just hint of line, and only when the man moved his face, sometimes you could see a bit of his left eye, which was actually on the side of the camera. So never be afraid of experimenting. Nobody actually follow all the rules, learn everything, and then just start unlearning and be the disruptor basically.
I think if you are going to go and film in the dark, Neha's totally right. A light doesn't always work. A light also shining in somebody's face is really intimidating. But you will need to take a camera that films really well in low light. And your A7 is a really good example of a camera that does film brilliantly in low light. But yeah, I think the way you've used the light here is absolutely sensational. As indeed is the sound you've recorded. You are so good, Neha. I'm just going to play just play the opening of the film again. If you listen for the singing in it, it's absolutely sensational.
The Singhu border has become the epicenter of the protests. Old and young, men and women who continue to brave the bitter cold and rain and refuse to back down. I am Rupa Jha, and I've come to spend a night at the Singhu border. I'm not here to debate the laws which have angered the farmers. I'm here to simply understand what keeps them going.
Sends shivers down the spine. How did you record such great sound there, Neha?
So yeah, I had a bit of a struggle recording it. I mean, obviously, as I'd mentioned earlier, that this was just an idea in my head when I was going to do this story, that I wish I get someone who is singing there. And actually, we got so lucky. I just asked around that, is there a singer, is one of you anyone who sings? And we got this guy. And so when I started actually recording him, so obviously I was doing audio check before I wanted to record him. So I just made him sit next to the fire. I didn't want to again lit him up. And just one quick thing about lighting again, if you could just go back a bit. So you can barely see the face of the person. No, next one, the singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you can barely see his face. I mean, it's just the bit of background light and the light falling on his face of the fire. So again, absolutely natural setting. Even when the song is going on, I've tried to use a lot of natural ambient sounds from here and there, like even a honking sound, or the burning of the fire. All those small little things, just pop it up somewhere in between, like it doesn't have to be always in the background score. Like his song didn't have that because he was mic'd up, only he was getting picked up in his mic. But I added all that extra sound very intentionally. And while recording him, so actually my his sound was totally distorting, because he was obviously so loud. So it took me like 5-7 minutes to actually make sure that the audio was not distorting and not bursting. So I experimented with three things. So I filmed one on iPhone. So I gave an iPhone in his hand, so he was recording himself on a voice memo. I wanted to have all these backups. Then I had a lapel mic connected to him and attached on his shirt. And then I had a top mic. So eventually, despite all my hustles, I actually still managed to use the top mic, because that was the clearest. The iPhone, I think, was a little away from his mouth, so obviously it didn't have clear enough sound. The lapel on him was not, again, very good, because it was distorting, and despite all my efforts it was still distorting. But then the top mic saved me. So I actually had to be very mindful, and so you have to be very clear. You have to do these sound checks before you start filming. So the third mic, which was the top mic, so I could move away from him actually. So I was very conscious of that also, that if I move away, the top mic may not pick the good sound. So I was literally very close to him, and I just made him to just go on and sing. And in the post production, all I did was added a bit of, so it was not even like a proper mic attached to him, it was the top mic, but it was very close to his mouth, and I just added a bit of echo in the edit, and that is why this sounds so haunting. So if you could just play it one more time for just the echo effect.
And for those that are looking for the echo, it is in your Final Cut Pro. It's under effects, audio effects, and there you get 2 or 3 different types of echo, I think.
Yeah, and actually one more thing I want to reiterate is that just lifting any echo effect and putting it on may not work, and so you also again have to experiment that. And I used very so I reduced, so how the standard amount of echo that you put on it, if you put that filter on, that was a lot, and I didn't want it to look sound abnormally echoing. So I just brought it down a bit. I just gave it a touch of echo, and I think that just worked. And this song sort of stood out for everyone. Anyone who watched this was like, my god, who's the singer? The singer himself was totally stunned to stunned to hear himself. He was like, oh my god, I never thought I could sound like this. So we can enhance the good sound even on the edit table, and we should always think of doing that.
We've done an hour and 20 minutes already. I could listen to you for literally the rest of the week. I know a few people are having to leave. Let's zoom on a little bit. Just talk really quickly about the natural sound you've got here. Just brings it to life.
Yeah, I think that they're like, I've used 5-6 different sounds put together in that one sequence. It's like 5-6 layers of sounds apart from the music.
And with a film like that, which is about a kind of an impact sport, it's really important to get the natural sounds. There's little bits of sound here that just bring the story to life. Don't know if you can pick that up on over Zoom, but there's tiny little bits of the kind of sound of scraping. Again, just beautifully recorded by Neha, just totally brings that bit to life as well. What are your tips for sound?
Just remember to take it. Just remember that is what is going to make your film really good. I mean, good visuals is one thing, but good sound is more critical than having good visuals. Sometimes an average looking visual can still look very good if it's got very good sound underneath, which goes often unnoticed. So always, apart from watching what you're filming, always remember to be close to the good sound. Be where the sound is. Even when you have shot things, go back to the sound. Just go close again. I would repeat it. Just take good sounds. Just remember what are those additional things even that you can't see. How can you just add it later by just going and gathering extra bits? So for example, this wrestlers bit that we just saw, I mean, there was enough natural action and sound going on where they were like fighting, and she's pinning the other person down on the mat. That was good enough. But I think just adding that shout of the coach from behind, or a whistle, it just gives it so much more energy, and that is why it looks like totally thrilling. Otherwise it would look flat, because I think visuals alone can't do anything, or can't do much.
Make sure you get the sound right. It's really, 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 really important. I have seen and heard of horror stories of people forgetting to record the most important sounds. And there's nothing you can do. Once it's gone, it's gone. So, you know, constantly check, you know, how are the batteries on my radio mic? You know, all these things, just make sure you get the sound right. Right, we've got millions of questions because Neha has been so utterly wonderful. I'm just going to stop sharing. I am now going to go through all of the questions as we've promised. Sorry, 2 seconds. Right, let's go right back to the beginning. So much love for you as well, Neha, and your films. Right. So we've answered most of the ones about the equipment. Nabiha asks, are the slow-mo shots possible only using DSLR cameras? She asks about smartphones as well. Can you do filming on smartphone in slow-mo? Any tips for that?
Yeah, so I think I only recently got this nice A7 III. Before that, I had like a proper news camera. So, you know, my iPhone was my actually dependable go-to second camera. And, you know, I would mostly use it for slow motion shots. And, you know, some of the most incredible shots in my old footages. I mean, nobody can actually tell the difference, but, you know, you just need to have the right amount of light to be able to film on a good slow-mo shot on an iPhone. But you can definitely do that. Again, then just go into details. Don't go into like too much of I think panoramic stuff. I think just like, you know, for example, even like a small movement of face or just falling of hand or just a little boy running and your camera just capturing like the movement of his leg, like when he's taking the leap. Just those small things, I think, you know, it can really be done through smartphones, and smartphones are so much smarter now. So yeah, definitely.
Yumisi says, were you able to take the slow-mo shots during the filming or during editing? It's all about frame rate, isn't it?
Yes, it is about frame rate. So mine, my camera allows up till 100 frame rate per second. So yes, I constantly keep switching. So again, you have to be alert of what action you're filming, and it's best to be done while you're filming. And if your camera has that setting option, so you know, keep it handy. Just switch depending on what shot and what treatment again. So you know, just be very like. The presence of mind really helps at that point. So I think and sometimes it's just good to take a couple of slow-mo shots, you know, even if you're not going to use it, it'll get wasted, but you know, it's good to just have it. So yeah, I think it's always on the time of filming for me now. But earlier, yes, I used to, and even now actually sometimes I stretch my shots time, and I use it in post-production, but mostly on the go while filming.
Excellent. Rashid asks, hi Naya, lovely session. Would you film the same farmers setups with dark skin like mine? So with darker skin, yeah, if you're still using natural light, I guess, as much as possible.
Yeah, because I think most of the people I was filming there were actually brown, if not very dark. So you know, and actually it's about playing with the exposure really. And I mean, recently I was in the southern part of India doing this series on, and you know, a lot of people in the southern states are actually pretty dark complexioned, and you know, it is just beautiful the way they look. So you know, I never want to like make it look even one shade lighter than they are, because I think the beauty lies in the fact that, you know, all skin tones are really beautiful. And you know, I think it's never come as a hindrance for me. I mean, I have heard this theory in the past from people that, you know, cameras were first made only because of for white skin, but I have never faced that. Actually, I've faced a lot of variety of complexions, and I've never faced that issue. It's all about, you know, working with your exposure well. Just make sure that, you know, I mean, in a lot of shots that you saw in my story, even if the person was not very dark, the face looks very dark because I'm filming them against the light. So I think it's totally fine to have dark skin as dark, and you know, even if it's against a very bright background. I mean, just be mindful of the exposure, and you can totally play around with all of that. And just, I think, yeah, just play around, don't be afraid.
Bandog01, who I think is Guy Bandolo, is asking, how do you know the stories you pitch will be a great digital piece?
I don't know. I never know, but it's just my instinct that tells me, oh, this is a great story. Like, from the content. So, there are some stories which have like very big potential. So, that, or something that is really unseen. Like, for example, that caterpillar story that we saw earlier. I mean, the only USP of that story was that, nobody had actually seen that, or nobody knew about that. Nobody knew the fact that this one thing is so expensive, more than gold. So, that was the shocking value. So you pick on these, like, almost like headlines. So, just think what's your headline for your story. So that's how you pick a story. And then it's all about treating your story differently than most people do it. So, always then your own ideas, your own experimentations will bring a new look and perspective and treatment to your stories. And trust your instinct. Just don't feel scared of stretching your limits, experimenting. Just that's what I've done all my career. I mean, I'm still learning, and I'm perfect at nothing. But I think the only thing that works for my stories is that I work from my heart. I'm very passionate, and most of you, I'm sure, are very passionate. But sometimes we are just told to stick to the rule book, and it's of course very very important to learn all the rules, and then just feel free to break the rules. Just feel free. Just read, watch. Watching, I think, really has helped me. And I even today, this morning, I was watching someone's work, and I was like, wow, that's like a really powerful story. So it's nothing that you've not seen before, but sometimes the way things impact, even in the way you have been doing, I think if you've got a formula, just stick to that if it works well for you.
I swear by this. I think if a film's got a great character, an interesting location, an interesting problem, and an interesting resolution, it's going to work, right? It really will work. Great characters hold the film together always. A really good question. I hope Fahim is still here. I totally missed this earlier on. Can Neha recommend any good sites to watch digital content? Who are your favorites? We shouldn't really be promoting non-BBC, but I mean, let's not lie. There are other good filmmakers out there.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, I don't know what are your standards, and you might just think that she doesn't know anything. What does she watch? But actually, I think I learn a lot from my colleagues here in Delhi as well. Like a small thing. I just watch random stuff. Like not every day can I do that, but I actually, when I'm doing nothing, I just open the app and I just look through things. And I don't even sometimes know who's done that. But like Dan just told me that he didn't know all these years that I'd done that Rohingya refugee story. So you don't know who's done it, but just pick things, just keep watching. I think a lot of most of Indian media content is not watchable. It's really bad. But then sometimes they also surprise you, and you're like, oh my god, like Indian media, some of them have started doing really good work. Some of our colleagues here, small little things. And I would say that I have also got like so much more to learn in terms of just pure experimentation. So I'm nowhere there, and I just feel like there's so much we can learn from everyone. So this morning I was watching, randomly opened up Darren Conway's I just typed his name. It's as simple as that. I typed Darren Conway. I don't know, most of you might know him. He's one of the top
shoot edit, isn't it?
Yes, top shoot edits of news gathering in BBC. Because I was watching someone else's work from India on COVID right now. And then from there, I just felt like, oh my God, what is Darren Conway up to these days? Because he's amazing at his work. So I just typed that. And the first story that came up was like, he basically revisited Syria after 2013. I think after a couple of years, he revisited, and all those people who were the victims of acid attack. He revisited those same characters who he had met in 2013, and the way he's done that story, it's remarkable. So it's it's nothing that we have not thought of. It's nothing that we have not done before, but just the pure what Dan said, that having the right character. So it was all about reaching out back to those characters, just remembering, oh my God, how else can I revisit Syria? Is it like I want to go and do a new story all over, or is it that I want to revisit and see where those lives are? So just revisiting, just investing that time on finding the good case study. I think that's very important. And rest, I think, just experiment with your treatment.
I'm going to make you really embarrassed now. I'm going to read out all the comments. Okay. And you're going to have to sit here and be really embarrassed. Wonderful work and wonderful tips. Thank you so much, Neha. So amazing, Neha. Such a great class, such beautiful shots. Thank you very, very much. Hi, Neha. Lovely session. Neha is an amazing filmmaker. I just love Neha's creativity. The amazing session. Many thanks. Absolutely brilliant. An excellent training, streamlined and useful. Thank you. Amazing, Neha. Thank you for sharing all of this with us. Thank you so much, Neha. You've got a lot of love going on out there right now.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. So kind of you guys.
One more. Such a great training. So motivational. Exactly what I needed. Goodness me, right? There is so much love you. Thank you so much. We are definitely out of time, but unless anyone's got anything desperate to add, thank you so much, Neha and Dan. Can I just say, I'm going to go right back. I'm going to put in the chat for the 40 odd people who are still here. I'm trying to create a WhatsApp group for World Service video journalists, just so we can kind of put out future sessions. I can advertise future sessions. I can ask questions. If you've made a lovely film, you want to share it with your colleagues, you can put it on there. We've got 10 or 11 people who've joined it from today. This is entirely optional. You might not want it, but you're very, very welcome. The link is in the chat and I'll leave that up. Also, if you're still here and you want any help with your cameras, I'm trying to buy in some help from different people who'll be able to talk about different cameras. We can do different sessions. If you haven't told me what camera you're using, please put it in the chat now. I'm going to copy all of this information down and then I'll send you information about training for those cameras. So I'll leave the chat going open. Neha, thank you so much for today. What a wonderful session. Really, really, really amazing picking the brains of a brilliant filmmaker like yourselves. We really appreciate your time. We know it's an incredibly difficult time as well in India at the moment. So please stay safe. And all our love goes to all of you and your colleagues. Thanks so much, right?
Thank you for having me here. I don't know, I feel so lucky that I'm getting to share my experiences with so many of our brilliant colleagues. And I just want to say that, all the best to all of you. And I want to attend one of your sessions soon. So, just we are on a lookout for more people.